never seen anything like that. I mean, I've seen jiu-jitsu, but those guys are amazing.
A great honor to have the Machado brothers.
Machado.
It's Carlos Machado.
With another episode of Coffee Time with Carlos Machado. I am so honored and pleased to have here someone that I greatly admire. I did a bit of my homework learning about him. What a great statesman. Senator Majority Leader of our state of Texas, Mr. Tim Parker. Mr. Tim Parker, thank you so much for your time and presence here today.
Carlos, my honor, brother. Thank you for having me. And what a treat. What an incredible career you have. We have so many dear friends in common. And so to come and spend a little time in your presence, it's my blessing. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get to it. I'm kind of intrigued. Yeah, since I started the podcast, you're the first official political figure that I consider a heavyweight that is part of this episode. And since I started, so I'm kind of like taken aback a little bit. Forgive me.
Hey, I'm just a regular guy from Arlington, Texas, that has a tremendous honor to serve as a North Texas senator and to lead the Republicans in the Texas Senate. So just a regular guy, just a regular citizen, a business guy, a family guy, trying to make a difference and keep Texas exceptional in every way.
Thank you. Thank you. So from what I learned, you are multi-talented because before engaging in your political career, you're a family man, father, husband, owns successful businesses, had an incredible upbringing. And one of the questions that came to me, how can you conciliate? And I think Texas has something unique about it. I'd like to extrapolate on that. You don't fit the regular profile of the average politician,
Well, that's true, Carlos. The founding fathers of Texas had a different view, which is at the end of the day, they wanted a citizen legislature, right? They didn't want people being paid, elected officials to be their members of the House of Representatives and the members of the Texas Senate. They wanted volunteers that have real professional experience and background that serve for a period of time, but everything they do is voluntary to be able to protect the great state of Texas and to propel it into the future. And so I think the fact that I've been a business person all my life, the fact that I'm in the business world all the time, in addition to being an elected official, I think frankly makes me a better elected official. I know what's going on out there. I know what it takes to create jobs and to build businesses. I know what it takes to be able to raise a family. I understand life and what real people every day are challenged with, frankly. I understand their opportunities as well as the challenges. And I think that's very unique in the way that Texas and its legislature was created all those years ago when we became the great state of Texas in 1845 when we became a state, and after our storied history as a republic and so on and so forth.
Well, that brings me to the question, what I see as an advantage, because it's unfortunately often enough that we see politicians that get detached from real life or what people is experiencing. And you seem to be an exception for the reasons that you already mentioned, because you're also in the trenches. You're not just a capital, state capital doing business, but you're here also living through the experiences as an average citizen. How much of having the benefit of that additional perspective helps you both ways, not just as a citizen that can defend the rights of those you represent, but also as a politician, having a much broader perspective than a lot of people in Washington may lack?
Well, look, I think that's a great question because, to be very candid, not to pick on our friends in D.C., but so many people in D.C. have been just in government, right? I mean, they haven't had in-depth business experiences. And it's my business experiences and the fact that I touch business every week of my life that really, I think, keeps me competitive. I know what's going on. I know what's happening in different industries. I know how hard it is to start a company from scratch. I know how hard it is to go and find capital for new entrepreneurial, innovative ideas, right? The search for capital is such a huge piece of the puzzle for any entrepreneur. And then I understand the challenges of the business as it matures, as you go from being a small-sized business to mid-sized business, and then hopefully, with God's grace, an enormous enterprise. What is the challenge then? It's about the tax and the regulatory environment. having a tax and regulatory environment that's attractive to capital, that you want to continue to invest capital to grow, to create jobs and to create opportunities. And so all of the things that are in that ecosystem, I think uniquely situate me because of I'm a business guy every day. Look, at 14 years old, I started working in my family's restaurants. I was bussing tables and flipping steaks. And I'm the same kid working as I was back then when I was 14 as I am today in the various roles I'm blessed to be in. Because, again, it keeps you grounded. You know what it's like to have real people to do real work, right? All the hot air in the world, is it going to create things, right? All the hot air in the world is not going to build buildings and build roads and build infrastructure and teach kids and keep the economy going and bring back our manufacturing base in critical areas. I mean, none of that's going to do it, right? It's only hard work, and it's hard work combined with aptitude, knowledge, and awareness of a domain that makes a difference. And I think those are areas where I think the Texas legislature, for people that are business people, really excels in comparison to what happens so often, frankly, in D.C., because you just lose sight of that. You lose sight of your constituency. I'm here amongst my constituency in Texas all the time, right? And I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah. I think in more recent times, I guess, we can observe the influx of population, migration from liberal states
Yes.
towards Texas
You bet.
for different reasons. Besides the cost of living, comparing, let's say, California, which they say pretty much California is being transplanted as we speak to Texas. If you take in consideration their demographics has decreased to the point that they're on the verge of losing seats at the House,
Yes.
their population.
Yes.
And but one thing that concerns me with that, because I know Texas, like you said, is a pro-business state. It's it has a lot of, in my opinion, advantages over some of the other states that I've seen.
No question.
But at the same time, if you have people that may have left their place of origin because whether the standards of living or the taxes or the politics of the area were not being conducive for them to have a decent standard of living, and try to search for a second opportunity in Texas, but then coming here and maybe having the mentality to bring with them the very same mindset that overall led the state to be in the state of decadence that they're in.
Yes.
Do you see that as a problem from
Very
a
much.
political perspective?
Carlos, I worry about this issue all the time. I think about it every week of my life because, as you've heard me say and you're aware, I mean, I've given my professional life volunteering for Texas to keep it exceptional, right? I believe that the future of America depends on a strong, bright red Texas that stands up for opportunity and for liberty and for freedom. That's the one place on the planet more than any other state where the American dream is alive and well. And so anything that threatens that American dream in Texas concerns me greatly. And so, look, what do I want to see happen? I want people coming from California or New York or Ohio or any state that they're going to come from to Texas. I want them to really leave with a refugee mentality, meaning they're running from where they are for a reason, and they're enlightened to know why they're leaving. They're leaving a disastrous environment that has really become disastrous because of horrific decision-making, because of a lack of leadership, right? I mean, that's California to a T, right? That horrific tax and regulatory environment, all the onerous burdens that take away freedom at every turn have really taken what was one of the most beautiful places on the planet and just destroyed it. And so I welcome folks from California leaving California to come to Texas when they recognize that they are refugees and they don't want to come to Texas and duplicate what they've left in California. I want them to understand why Texas is so exceptional, why it's special, and why we have to protect it at all costs. Because like I said, the future of this entire country depends on Texas standing up and leading for liberty and freedom. And so as a result of that, I try to put in place policies, Carlos, that address that. How do I make that happen, right? Look, I can't go and put up a boundary on my western boundary, right? Or my northern boundary or my eastern boundary, right? And so what I can do is educate people And so I'll tell you a story if you don't mind. So
Please.
it was 2021, January of 2021. Step back in that dark time in American history. Here, President Trump finished his first term, and now Joe Biden is coming in to be president. And, my goodness, I mean, it's been one horrific decision after another. And one of those horrific decisions, I'm in Austin in my office in the Capitol. It's January of 2021. And one of the news items that broke that week was just less than a week that he'd been taken office as president. Biden canceled one of these great initiatives of President Trump, which was the 1776 initiative that was all about preserving and protecting Texas history, right? Oh, sorry, U.S. history, excuse me, all about protecting U.S. history, the 1776 initiative. And so, there I am in Austin. I want to pull out my hair that here, this wonderful thing that tells all of our history, protects all of our history, the good and the bad for future generations of Americans, that President Trump has put in place to now be something that will be maintained for generations to come. It gets shot the first week that Biden's in office. Awful, awful, awful. So I said to myself, what can I do? And the Lord really spoke to put it on my heart that we could do something in Texas. And so I was able to conceive of a concept called the 1836 Project, which is the year that we achieved our independence from Mexico. And so it's our rallying cry. And so I created something called the 1836 Project, where we could preserve and protect Texas history for future generations. And so the first component of which was, I want to put together a panel of some of the greatest historians in Texas that understand Texas history. So I wrote a piece of legislation that called for appointees from the governor, from the lieutenant governor, and from the speaker. And so each of them had, let's call it 3 selections, okay? Well, the first piece was I wanted to protect our Texas history. I wanted to be able to impart it, of course, on our babies in our schools, in the curriculum in our schools and so forth. But I also wanted to be able to take Texas history and take it to the masses in this state. I wanted a traveling exhibit or series of exhibits that would go around to the people, that would go to every courthouse, to go to every cemetery, every museum, and talk about our history in unique ways, things that we don't know. Because, if you didn't grow up in Texas, you didn't get the benefit of 7th grade Texas history. So how many people know the history of Texas? In the end, we have 31 million people, almost 32 million people. And in the big picture, relatively few know our Texas history. So I wanted that element to be there to educate people to be proud Texans, to understand what it means to have a limited government, what it means to believe in free enterprise and capital markets and the history of the state. Mm-hmm. But then I also wanted to do something that would provide some additional, if you will, education and therefore protection to Texas, which was this. Now with this 1836 project in place, one of the components beyond what I just discussed is that when you now come to Texas and you have a driver's license from California or New York or Oregon or wherever, you have to surrender your driver's license. But before you get your new Texas driver's license, you now have to take the 1836 content. You now got to get the educational content of the 1836 project. So I'm very proud of that because, again, look, I'm a guy that believes that if you educate the mind, if you give someone the opportunity to understand why Texas is so exceptional, they'll get it. And they will therefore vote the right way, which is to vote for candidates and individuals of character and substance that understand what Texas is all about, that understand that our limited government is always best, that we want to keep the regulatory environment to a minimum. We want to keep taxation on our people to a minimum. All those things that maximize freedom for the individual, they'll understand that. And so that was my vision and my view, that we need to be able to provide those folks coming to Texas with that kind of educational content. And so that's what's happening today. These great historians have summarized Texas history. Wow. They've put it into content now that they get at those driver's licenses offices. And I'm going to continue to build out that program and do more and more with it in the years to come. But I think it really ties to your concern with people coming here and how we protect this great state.
That is incredible. I had no knowledge of that piece of legislation that you put together, that project. We're talking about history. Unfortunately, that's one of the most overlooked disciplines of these days, because they always say if you don't learn about history, you are doomed to repeat the
That's right.
mistakes.
That's right. Right.
But I think, seeing from a broader perspective, I was having a conversation not long ago about one of the greatest gifts bestowed upon mankind, which is the Constitution of the United States of America. Because I haven't seen a parallel in history of any civilization. And I understand that we as a country are not as old as some of the centennial or millennia civilizations like the Roman empires and so on. But in the inception of this great country, having the Constitution to the degree in which was made by wise men
Yes.
that were enlightened enough to foresee the future and try to calculate what measures should be in place to restrain the government from its obligations and empower the people to have their rights respected. And there's no parallel in history that I know of.
There is none.
And I think the lack of or overlooking of the U.S. Constitution is one of the greatest tragedies sometimes, especially for our youth that not only don't know enough of our history, but they lack the knowledge of their constitutional rights. Because I think that's what stands between literally freedom and the demise of civilization. Because I see the United States as one of the last great pieces of Western freedom in the world today.
100%. I mean, that is a incredible, I think, God-inspired document when you talk about our Constitution. It's where all of our liberties and freedoms are enshrined as Americans. There's nothing else like it anywhere in the world. There's nothing like it in the history of mankind. And it truly is extraordinary. It is the most fragile as well. This experiment with democracy, with this republic, that's what we are, a constitutional republic, the United States. It is so fragile and it has to be protected. And just what you said, you worry about our kids. That's what I worry about. Our kids, do they have the history and the knowledge? And then are they able to apply what was in the Constitution to their daily life and their walk, right? Everything they do, to understand how blessed they are to do business. Here we are in North Dallas, to have the ability to do business in North Dallas and not worry about the freedom that you have to do whatever you want to do every day, to go and worship freely on Sunday, to go into the public square and say whatever you want to say, and whatever you can say is protected. All of those things that are so unique from any other regime in history, it's vitally important. And when you think about the fact that just here, a couple months from now, we'll be celebrating 250, here on July the 4th. I mean, it's really an incredible achievement. And you just want our babies and our grandbabies and future generations to understand how blessed they are by the Lord God Almighty
100%.
to be born or to have gotten here to this country, because it is the greatest place that the Lord ever gave to planet Earth, is the United States. And Texas in particular.
I can tell you this. Yeah, I mentioned to you earlier, God bless America. And then I say afterwards, God bless Texas.
Amen. Amen, brother.
But
Amen.
one thing, though, that I feel sometimes people sometimes live in a bubble when they're like secluded from experiencing, get to know or hands-on experience traveling abroad.
Yes.
To see how other countries or other places in the world operate. I travel a lot and I go to all kinds of different countries with the kind of work that I do. And then it's much easier for me. And I know that anybody in my position probably, if they had the chance to see how everything is abroad,
Yes.
come back with a more sound perspective, how much this country offers to everyone, how much we are benefited from it and take for granted.
Yes.
It's just like,
that's exactly right. And look, I think that is another big topic you just hit, right? We're talking about our history and educating kids, but then you're really talking about an educational component, which is to go and see the world and to then understand uniquely how blessed and fortunate you are to be an American, right? Because look, that was my experience in life. As a kid, as an undergraduate student, I got to go and live in Italy. And what an experience it was for me to live out of the country and to experience that for a period of time. It just opened your eyes to everything. Then I was very fortunate to be able to pursue a degree overseas. I have a master's degree from the London School of Economics. and to go and live in a foreign country, as great as a Western European country is in terms of amenities and so forth, all the things that, the luxuries of life you would think. Well, guess what? You come, as great as those are, and you go, wow, it's not America. It's not America.
Yep.
I mean, one after another, just on luxury type things and the quality of life that we have over here in America and Texas, of course, but all the freedoms that we talk about, just the freedoms are just unparalleled where we are. And so I think the more that a child, a young adult has the ability to go and see the world, understand everything around them, it just makes them more appreciative of this country, of the United States, and how good we have it. And I'm just giving examples of Western Europe, much less other places in the world that are nowhere near the level of development and sophistication of Western Europe. I just got back literally over the weekend from being in Great Britain. I opened a trade office. One of my legislative initiatives was to lead a trade office for Texas. And I just literally opened up a trade office in the middle of St. James in London just a few days ago. Why? Because I want to strengthen the relationship between Texas and a great ally like the United Kingdom. We have choppiness, obviously, from time to time, as we have right now in that relationship at the federal level.
Yes.
But there's tremendous love for the people of Great Britain from the United States and from Texas, and vice versa.
Yes.
A very, very special relationship. And so I was just there working to open up that trade office. And once again, these concepts come back full speed, right? Which is, we share so much in common, and you realize at the end of the day that as good as it is, as nice as it over there as it is, there's no place like Texas. There's no place like America, right? But yet it's important that we have trade that is healthy and fair and balanced and good for people that are well-intentioned, good-minded people. And so, the fact that the United Kingdom today is the largest foreign direct investor in Texas, people don't realize that. Yeah. And in opening this trade office, it's kind of fun, Carlos, if you allow me for a moment to talk about it.
Please do.
We have opened this trade office in St. James, this wonderful area in London, and we've put it in the same neighborhood, just across the street from where the Republic of Texas, when we were our own country, from 1842 to 1845, maintained an embassy or a legation, an embassy right there in St. James. We now have put a Texas trade office right there in the same neighborhood across the street. So I'm excited about that because I think it's got huge implications for the world, huge implications for Texas and the United Kingdom. It'll create tens of thousands of jobs for Texans in the years to come, billions of dollars of investment in Texas from a great ally.
Wow.
And of course, we'll be reciprocal in that regard, but we opened that trade office officially. And I think back about how this thing all kind of came together, and that 4 years ago, I was fortunate in Austin to have dinner with the UK ambassador to the United States, Dame Pierce, an incredible lady. Talk about a rock star. This woman served as a fighter pilot before she went into the diplomatic service. So you think about that and that era. What an incredible life that she led. And I just, getting to know her, I said, Madam Ambassador, how about a trade deal between the number 5 economy in the world, the United Kingdom, and the number 8 economy in the world, the state of Texas? And let's do something. And she loved it. And so that's when that process kind of got underway. And I reached out to our wonderful people that work for our great Governor Abbott and the Economic Development Office. And I said, look, let's get going on some paperwork. Let's work to drive this relationship. I want to make this happen. I reached out to the Consul General's Office of Great Britain and Houston. Those are a lot of good people. And I said, look, let's start working and marching to getting a deal done.
Wow.
And I would take delegations of lawmakers from Texas over to see it, to look at opportunities. And we talk about where are the opportunities for us to do a trade deal. And we landed on energy, obviously, right?
Yep.
Huge energy opportunities between Texas and the UK. Then we landed on technology opportunities, all the new technologies of tomorrow, artificial intelligence, quantum, nuclear power, all of that, where we can work together. And then you think about life sciences and all the breakthrough technologies that will come down in the next 5 to 10 years, and that the UK and Texas can work together uniquely in those areas. And I said, that's great. Let's put it together. So we literally put together this trade memorandum.
Yep.
Governor Abbott signed it at number 10 Downing Street. They're the PM's residence in the spring of 2024. And then in 2025, we started a new session, and I created this little Texas UK caucus, bicameral, bipartisan, just to focus on this relationship. And I said, what I want to do aspirationally is to open a trade office. I want to open a trade office in London to go back to our roots, where we were as a republic when we had a presence on the ground in London from 1842 to 1845. And so it really kind of came full circle to go and cut that ribbon with Mrs. Abbott just this week. I was there with Mrs. Abbott, our economic development team, our Secretary of State, and all of our folks that went over from Texas to go and go and create greater economic ties, greater economic opportunities for the people of Texas and the people of Great Britain. And so it was really special. And then to put it in the same neighborhood where the original embassy took place, all those years ago was pretty special. Pretty special.
What a historic event,
It really was. And the fact that the people of Britain embraced us so warmly was also very, very special. I mean, literally every hour of my day, all week, I would meet with one business executive after another in every industry. And they're just excited. They're excited about investment, about creating jobs over here. It was just really remarkable in every industry. And in the banking world and insurance and life sciences and technologies of all kinds. It was really extraordinarily special. Something I need to pinch myself. I had the honor of being a part of all of that.
That's one more for your list. My God, I'm taken aback again. Thank you so much for such a great initiative, and that brings me to another question, because you talk about the direct investment that comes from the UK. You have the trade office there. They established directly Texas in the UK and the entire country. But I came across some piece of information that I'm really wishful and hoping that it comes to fruition. Take Wall Street supremacy out of New York and make the Texas eventually with a stock and exchange that will rival, if not surpass, our New York fellows. What do you have to say about that?
Carlos, this is a spectacular vision. It is so fun. It is so great for Texas. And I'm proud to tell you that I've been driving this ship for Texas for a number of years. So I started driving this ship, let's call it circa 2015, 11 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
I was in the House of Representatives. I was blessed to be the chairman of Financial Services and Investments. And I started looking at the landscape of, okay, how do I maintain the excellence of Texas? How do I maintain this environment of being a low regulation, low tax state? The only way I can do that, and to take care of our people, to fund the roads, to fund our schools, and all the things that we do to fund our border, because we had a clown in chief with Biden who didn't want to secure the border and allow millions of people to come in here that were illegal. You think about that. We have to provide resources to do all those things. But I don't want to ever, ever, ever add additional burden, a tax burden on our people. Never. And so how do I therefore address all those expenses that Texas has? The only way you get there is to grow the economy. I got to grow the economy and therefore grow the tax base with the current environment, right? And so I said to myself, what industry, this is 2014, 2015, what industry would be really attractive to Texas, would fit with our DNA, that you're not going to bring folks that don't share our values, a bunch of liberal folks that are going to be out to lunch, but people that understand the importance of hard work, the importance of putting capital to work, the importance of entrepreneurship, the importance of having capital to drive innovation and new companies that can be created that will create the new technologies of tomorrow. And I said to myself, financial services. I mean, it was very clear to me. And then I looked around at the ecosystem. I saw that we had big companies here. One that comes to mind immediately is one like Fidelity, right? A big retail investor company that allows so many people to invest for their retirement. Well, they're headquartered in Boston, but guess what I knew? We had more employees of Fidelity in North Texas 10 years ago than they had at the mothership in Boston. And I started seeing all these financial services companies that were there. I remember being a part of the courtship going after and attracting Comerica Bank, a great regional bank out of Detroit, Michigan. And they came to Texas. Why? Because they didn't want to be governed by a, really candidly a nutty federal regulatory oversight scheme during the Obama era that was too restrictive on business. It wasn't healthy for a bank. And so what did they want to do? They wanted to be governed by the banking system here in Texas, by a great bank administrator. We have a wonderful gentleman that oversees our banking system by the name of Charles Cooper, who I think is about the finest bank examiner there is anywhere in America.
Wow.
And so what did Comerica see? They saw the freedom. They saw an attractive regulatory structure that wasn't overly burdensome, where they could invest and create jobs for the future of tomorrow, right? The future of Texas and the future of the country. They could serve every geography in the country as Comerica Bank, but they could do it being domiciled and headquartered here in Texas. And so all that was the environment I saw 11 years ago. And I said, you know what, let's get going. So a colleague and I passed in 2015 the Gold Bullion Depository. I never moved a bill faster as chairman of a committee.
Wow.
And the reason why I moved the Gold Bullion Depository, people know why. What was Parker doing? Well, it was my vision that we would start with the commodities exchange, that we would start with gold and then move to other metals. And then we would move to cotton and cattle and oil and gas futures, all the things that make Texas distinctive in our economy, if that makes sense, right? I thought all of that made sense for us to do. And so, as a result of that, we passed that bill with that being in mind to be the first step, if you will, the first step in that process of building out and strengthening our financial services community here. And I'm really excited to tell you that we've been moving in that direction for years now.
Wow.
We've been working with our securities folks in Texas to strengthen our securities regulations. We've been working on the banking side to make sure we get the banking regulation proper. I've been working in digital assets to be able to address blockchain and all the crypto and all the Bitcoin. And I created the first bill of its kind in America, really following Wyoming, my House Bill 4484, that gave us the regulatory structure for digital assets. But all of these things, Carlos, have worked together to create the current environment. And then we stood up the Gold Bullion Depository. Let's call it 18 and 19. I go to Wall Street once a year, and I would go and say, look, come on down to Texas. Come bring me a partnership, bring me a technology partnership, a financial partnership to help me build out this vision of a commodities exchange that then ultimately will become an equities exchange. That was the vision. And then, frankly, we got up and running in late 18 and 19. I took my trip. I was scheduled to take a trip in 2020 in late March, early April. And of course, COVID hit the world.
Yeah.
And then you saw the New York Assembly, the New York legislature was very silly, dumb. And they started creating, if you will, their floating legislation to tax securities transactions, Carlos.
Wow.
To tax securities transactions and securities transfers, which would be horrific. All you're doing is taxing the American people. You're putting a tax on the American people on their 401k, on their savings for their retirement, or the savings for the kids to go to college. Dumb, 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 dumb. But we recognized what they were doing. And so Governor Abbott and a handful of us that were very engaged on understanding this opportunity started talking to these powers that be about moving to Texas. And they didn't do it. And then, we saw this opportunity coming into 2024 that Texas could it's time, let's just drive ourselves. And we really were so blessed to have a wonderful friend of the governor and myself, Jim Lee, to say yes and to lead this Texas Stock Exchange, all privately funded, the most well-financed and capitalized stock exchange in the history of America.
Wow.
And it's got all the major players. I mean, all the big banks are there. I mean, you got everybody in the mix. You got Bank of America in there. You got Citadel in there. You have BlackRock in there. You have Goldman Sachs in there. And they're all investing. They're all investing in this new stock exchange that will be really spectacular because it'll have less of a regulatory burden than what the other stock exchanges have to deal with. And then I was so fortunate to carry all these pieces of legislation in 2025 that are now law to create the greatest environment to have a stock exchange, I think, anywhere, not just in America, but frankly, anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And we're so excited about what it means. And so in November of last year, the people of Texas supported one of those bills that was a constitutional amendment. It was Prop 6 that said, and it's now enshrined forever in the Texas Constitution, that we will never tax one of these securities transactions or security transfers. It's permanent. Well, that sent a message to everybody in financial services in the United States and around the world that Texas is serious, that we're going to drive this thing in a real serious way. And so that's where we are. And so now the Texas Stock Exchange is up and running here in July. It will be up and running in July. And because of all these bills, created the best environment to address issues around stopping crazy shareholder activism and advantages, if you will, for companies so they can stay focused on business and creating wealth for their investors as opposed to all the silly games and distractions. All those things now are in our bill package. And then we have the very best environment now in America to incorporate a company. So historically, the last 50, 60 years, it would incorporate a business in Delaware. Not anymore, Carlos.
Yep.
They're going to be incorporating that company here in Texas.
Wow.
Which is so exciting. So it all goes hand in hand. We're going to be incorporating here now, not Delaware. You have the greatest stock exchange environment anywhere in the world. We're addressing proxy issues to where, if you're a proxy, you're not going to be activated or motivated to move and make decisions based on some political flavor of the month. You're going to make decisions and recommendations on what's best for a company based on real fiduciary responsibility.
Yep.
And we put all this package out there, and then the Texas Stock Exchange, all these bills, and then the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ all said, hold on, we want to be a part of this as well.
No way.
Yes. And so now the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ both will have a Texas edition that is up and running. So think about this ecosystem now. You could have the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ Stock Exchange Texas edition, and the Texas Stock Exchange, the TXSE, the TXSE. All three exchanges here in Dallas. I mean, creating this envision for what we call Y'all Street, the future of American finance. And so over the course of the last several years, I talk about this vision. I'm on panels and fireplace chats and fireside chats talking about this. And people are like, oh, is this real? Is this real? And let me say very clearly, I mean, here we are in 2026, obviously in April. I'm telling you, my friend, within the next decade, it'll be very clear that Texas will be America's financial leader.
Wow.
New York will still be there. It'll be number two. They'll play second fiddle to Texas. And the majority of America's financial wherewithal will be built here. We already have more financial services professionals in Texas than any other state in the country, more than New York already.
Incredible.
And it's just the beginning of the first inning. So in my mind, when I think about what we're doing there and the fact that I'm continuing to drive that agenda legislatively, when I'm back in session in January, I'm going to be carrying new bills that continue to strengthen this vision for Y'all Street and American finance being here, to be the very best place to incorporate, the very best place to be a publicly traded company. I'm going to continue to work to accelerate having more capital in Texas, more capital for early stage companies, for those entrepreneurs that are fighting. They're scratching every night. They're starting in a garage. They're starting in a basement, and they're working to build the technologies that will power the future of this country. And so all of that needs to happen here in Texas because we understand innovation. We understand what it means to be an entrepreneur because as Texans, it's in our DNA.
Yep.
We take risks knowing that the risk is worthwhile because at the other end of the deal, there is opportunity for investment. There's jobs. There's great things that will be created and sustained because someone was a risk taker, just like they were as wildcatters, in centuries past.
Yep.
The same environment in our DNA exists today. And it's also why when I had this vision for Y'all Street, why I went to London, why I opened the trade office, because I wanted to be able to bring companies that are traded today on the London Stock Exchange. I want them to be dual listed on a Texas exchange. So you think about that and you think about how this really kind of completes that vision of strengthening Texas for the next generation.
Incredible, incredible. This episode is brought to you by Machado Method Nutrition, premium fuel for disciplined athletes who train with intent and recover with purpose. Live the method, fuel the life. Start now at machadomethodnutrition.com. There are a couple of things I want to get into here. First, since you mentioned digital currency and crypto, it's something that, especially nowadays, it's becoming very commonplace. How does that unfold? How do you see that, the crypto market?
Well, look, I think it's going to continue to unfold. In 2021, when I carried that original digital assets bill in Texas, the most really the first big play. Wyoming got into the space, but with all due respect to my friends in Wyoming, they're a smaller economy, a smaller state.
Sure.
But when Texas decided to get in, people realized it was a real deal.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put in place the right regulatory environment that was the lightest possible touch that enabled innovation without chaos, if that makes sense, right?
Gotcha.
And I think we got it right. And we've seen a lot of activity in that space since. And the way I looked at it is this. Fundamentally, what is the most important thing economically for the United States in our future? Our future will only be as bright if we have, as it's been the last 50 years plus, if we continue to maintain our strength over the financial system globally.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm really talking about is global hegemonic influence.
Mm-hmm.
The dollar being the reserve currency of the world is the engine of that. It's the essence
Mm-hmm.
of why America is able to exert financial influence globally.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do I strengthen the dollar as the reserve currency of the world? Well, let's be real. We know we have this enormous trade deficit. We know that we have an enormous budget deficit. We have to address those issues head on.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you address those issues as a country
Yep.
is to have more assets on the balance sheet.
Yep.
And so the way I looked at digital assets 5 years ago and earlier than that was, look, they're good. It's innovation. It's a new asset class. They were really being born. People don't realize this, but the whole Bitcoin digital asset space was really a response to the fact that you had liberal Democrats trying to extinguish freedom and your own financial future. Think about what was happening. You know, in the Biden era, you had the Biden administration wanting to review every single transaction in your checking account above $600. Think about that. Every single transaction above $600. No, that's crazy. I mean, just absolutely crazy. And so the whole Bitcoin digital asset play was really a response. It was freedom-loving Americans disproportionately here in Texas saying, nonsense, Mr. President.
Mm-hmm.
This is nonsense. And the fact that you have freedom with an asset like Bitcoin, like a digital asset like Bitcoin, crypto assets, is really what was in response to this extinguishment of liberty and freedom that the Biden administration was trying to invoke. And so all of that, coupled with the fact that, in my mind, we were doing nothing but in supporting digital assets, adding to the American balance sheet, right? Yes. I had a recent conversation at the White House with Secretary Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about our deficit and how big this budget deficit is at basically $39 trillion. And then we talked about the fact that we really value the American enterprise, all that is America,
Mm-hmm.
at 500 plus trillion, maybe double that, right? But conservatively at 500 trillion. And you just realize that concept I had of putting assets on the balance sheet is really the name of the game.
Yep.
And so as long as those assets are on the American balance sheet, then we're winning. And for all those reasons, that's why I support digital assets. That's why Texas supports digital assets. That's why President Trump supports digital assets. And we actually have a Bitcoin reserve, a piece of legislation that we passed and created here in Texas in 2025 to continue to support and propel that vision.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I have a couple of the things that I'm kind of itching here to mention, and I'm so gracious for you sharing this information with us. We talk about, and there's some topics that maybe there's some controversy with it. I don't know how that affects Texas in particular compared to nationwide, but a lot of questions have been brought up of foreign ownership of
Yes.
land in
Yes.
the United States,
Yes.
especially depending what is the origin of the ownership, and if there's any legislation or any concerns from your end in regards to that.
I have great concern with this topic of foreign ownership of anything in Texas if it's hostile foreign ownership.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a great partner that believes in fair trade and shares our values like the United Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
no issues. That's great and very healthy and vibrant and important. But if China, if Russia, if North Korea, and Iran, whether or not, they're before the war or now a weakened Iran, want to engage and own not just land, but they want to own anything that's strategic investment, infrastructure, or something that's vital to American and Texas security. It's an absolute no for me. Absolutely no. No way would I ever tolerate that. And, our eyes have been wide open now, finally starting to become wide open and aware of what's taking place. Let me tell you another story. In 2021, now is the beginning of the Biden administration. We had the first Trump term and all the great things we were doing for the economy. You remember in the first term of Trump, the economy was gelling. I mean, the economy was doing great.
Yep.
We had more employment for everybody in every state, every ethnicity, everyone in every industry was doing really, really well financially. And then, of course, COVID hit. That's a whole other topic. But remember all of that, right? And so what we recognized in that time period, and they discovered it at the end of the Trump first term, maybe the final 60 days, but it was too late in the administration to do something, was that we had a problem here in Texas. Down in South Texas, near Laughlin Air Force Base and Val Verde, we had a very dangerous situation for Texas and for the United States. We had a former communist general from China that had acquired 200,000 acres of land for a supposed wind farm. I mean, what a joke.
Wow.
Next to Laughlin Air Force Base. Well, I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous, but people had gone along. No one in Washington had seen that you had a former communist Chinese military leader. Now he's a Chinese entrepreneur, of course, Carlos, right? I mean, what a joke. Now that acquired 200,000 acres for a wind farm project and that part of the state in Val Verde County. And how absolutely absurd. And so what we recognized, the administration knew what was taking place the final few weeks, the Trump term, but it was too late for them to do something. And then candidly, Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz weren't able to do anything immediately at that time either, given the fact that you have a Democrat president in 2021 with Biden. And so it really fell on Texas to protect Texas and to set the model for the country. And so how blessed was I in 2021
Wow.
to be able to carry the very first bill in all of America to address this very issue of foreign ownership. And so I call it the Texas Lone Star bill, if you will, the Lone Star bill, which basically was all about protecting our freedoms and protecting our own interests. And what we did basically is myself and Senator Campbell, my colleague in the Texas Senate, I was a House member in 2021,
Wow.
and we worked together to pass the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act. And basically what we did is we said, look, no, if you're a foreign adversary from one of those four known countries, you're not going to be able to own critical infrastructure. You're not going to be able to own a piece of our grid or something that ties into our electrical grid. You're not going to be able to own a part of a critical water system that sustains life in Texas. You're not going to be able to own a part of a critical communication system that supports life and our ability to communicate with one another in Texas. No, no, no. And so we passed that bill, the first of its kind in the country. We sent a very clear message. And then from there, of course, we've been working to stop and reveal the espionage in our universities. I've carried many bills on that topic.
Wow.
I carry a bill called CFIUS, which is our model basically resembling what we have in Washington, which is basically a group of high-ranking government leaders that review transactions when anytime a foreign entity wants to buy something in Texas or anywhere in the country. But the problem is that the CFIUS process in D.C. is broken because it's been overwhelmed for decades. Mm-hmm. And so the individual states have to lead the agenda, Carlos. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right? This is where federalism comes into play. That at the end of the day, the founding fathers of this country realized that when the states compete with one another through a system of federalism, the winner is the American people. Mm-hmm. And so we in Texas have to lead the way. And that's what we did with this bill I'm referencing then in 2021, that became our first time to work to ban any of these foreign adversaries from having access and ownership in Texas. And then in 2025, my colleagues and I, Senator Colcourse, myself, Senator Campbell, working with Governor Abbott and Governor Patrick, we passed a bill that addresses the land threat in particular. But then this CFIUS bill now that I got out of the Senate last session, that unfortunately died in the House, but we'll get it done next time in 27, will then enable us to look at not just land, but to look at all of these other critical supply chains, the healthcare supply chain, the food supply chain into Texas, and to make sure that we never have anybody that would be adversarial in that capital table as well. So we're looking at all of those things, but I want your audience to know that I was so fortunate in 21 to spearhead that effort, to be the first bill of its kind in America to address the problem of these foreign threats. And unfortunately, these foreign threats are all across the country.
Yeah.
They're spying on us. They're all around. But we had the chance, and we did, stop it from happening down in Val Verde, that we were able to stop this acquisition of 200,000 acres. We were able to stop this spy operation, which would have been, this wind farm, and to be able to protect our men and women at Laughlin Air Force Base, our best and finest men and women that serve in the military, that serve in the Air Force. And all of that has been an example of how Texas is leading and how blessed I've been to be at the tip of the spear now the last 5 or 6 years for Texas and the country on raising awareness of these major challenges that we're facing.
Well, in passing, I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned, because you talked about our armed forces,
Yes.
and it's very close to me because in my line of work, I have quite a few practitioners of what I teach who are former or even active military
Yes.
personnel
Yes.
that have had or continue to have PTSD and other issues. And I understand how critical it was in more recent times, I guess, even under President Trump's administration, the Ibogaine, acceptance as a solid option to mitigate those issues, and with a high rate of suicides amongst our armed forces.
Yes.
I feel incredible how this came to be, and I know you have a lot to say about that because you've been part of this process as well.
Well, Carlos, thank you for talking about it. I'm passionate about this topic because there's nothing more important, first of all, than to take care of our veterans who put it all on the line for all of us. Every freedom that we have here to be in North Dallas and to tape this show today and all that we do is because those men and women put on the uniform of the United States military and put their lives on the line for all of us. And then when you think about how disproportionately our veterans are suffering from traumatic brain injury, from PTSD, from severe co-addictive disorders and depression and anxiety, and that we have tragically, dozens of these heroes, true heroes that are dying and taking their own life because of what they're dealing with. Mental illness is very real. And we've got to make certain that the American people understand that mental illness is just as real as a heart attack, just as real as a broken arm or a broken leg. Mental illness is vital that we address it, that we don't sweep it under the carpet, put it in the closet, don't talk about it. We have to talk about it. We have to address it because, frankly, I think so much of it's gotten so much worse since COVID because of all the isolation. And then I see so many of our kids that are not interacting with one another. They're interacting on these stupid devices. And Texas has been leading there to restrict access to those devices during the day. And going back 4 or 5 years, I was passing legislation asking the Texas Education Agency to give us guidelines for what is a proper usage level for a kid on one of these devices. So you're not going to have all these mental health issues, but mental health is an enormously important issue, and we have to address it. And so the net of it all is that in my life, I really believe that there are no such thing as coincidences. The Lord God Almighty guides our footsteps, guides every action, everybody we meet, every day of our life, Carlos. And that's really been the example for me. My own daughter, my own youngest daughter has gone through a horrific battle for a few years with TBI. And so I've been blessed to take her to physicians all around the country to help her get relief. And I just realized how fortunate I am to have great relationships with great physicians and resources to be able to take my daughter to get treatment. And she's doing so well and back in school and doing wonderful, praise God. But my point is, I think in many ways, the Lord put me in that environment with my own daughter having a TBI to understand to some degree what these incredible heroes, our veterans, were going through when they come back from the battlefield and all the things that they discovered and experienced. Mm-hmm. And so friends of mine like our former governor, Rick Perry, and friends of mine like Brian Hubbard would talk to me about the importance of this Ibogaine substance. And I certainly am listening and I'm fully engaged. But then over the course of the last couple of years, these incredible veterans would come to me, not in a formal fashion, but just one-off meetings at a coffee shop, at my own family's home, having a meal on Thanksgiving or Christmas. And I would have these grown men, incredible heroes, share with me one-on-one that they weren't the husband they used to be. They weren't the father they used to be. They weren't able to hold down a job the way they used to be able to. And then they went out of the country and they got this treatment of an incredible substance called Ibogaine that grows. It's a bark in West Africa, and that they went to these unregulated environments in foreign countries and they got this treatment. And now, wow, their life and the restoration of their life was occurring post an Ibogaine treatment. And then I started looking into the science because I was aware of the science because of my own journey with my own precious baby girl, Ashley.
Sure.
And I recognized that what they were really doing and looking at the testing and looking at the imaging was that it wasn't just a short-term chemical spike. It wasn't just a short-term serotonin boost that the Ibogaine treatment was providing. It was increasing the neuroplasticity. A structural change to the brain was occurring pre and post Ibogaine. And I thought to myself, my God, what an opportunity we have to do something that we can never do enough to take care of America's war heroes, our veterans that put it all on the line. Mm-hmm. And if we do something that takes care of our warriors, it will then benefit everyone in the public at large that's having mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And so I recognized that, and I saw, my goodness, what an opportunity in the 2025 session to do something special. Mm-hmm. And so how fortunate was I to have the ability to then lead and carry the Texas Senate bill that would be the very first state in America to step up to have an Ibogaine clinical trial. And I had amazing support from our great Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick and Mrs. Patrick. Wow. I had amazing support from our great Governor Abbott about the importance of this. He was so excited the day we signed that bill in to law and all along the journey. Wow. And to have so many Texas veterans that their lives, my prayer, will be forever changed and impacted for the better because of Ibogaine, that the federal government all those years ago said, we're not going to study, we're not going to do it. And Texas led. This is my message on so many things, be it a trade office, be it the stock exchange, be it being, the first state in America to lead on Ibogaine, right? All of those things. When Texas leads, because we're the land of freedom and opportunity and the economic powerhouse, the Republican conservative powerhouse of the country, the other states will follow us, right? The other states will follow us, Carlos. That's the example here of this Ibogaine initiative. We passed this bill with this great support of my colleagues, of the Speaker of the House as well, helped us. My sponsor of the bill, Cody Harris, a House member here in Texas. We passed it and now created the model for the country, which is amazing. Yeah. So we are now I've been working actively with my colleagues to stand up a clinical trial for Ibogaine here in Texas with our Texas universities, which is spectacular. The Texas taxpayer supported a $50 million commitment to Ibogaine, to this Ibogaine clinical trial that will get underway here in the summer. I couldn't be more excited about that. And then 10 days ago, in the Oval Office for President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, there with my friend Brian Hubbard, and there with my friend Morgan and Marcus Luttrell, to be able to go and put in place an executive order that now puts the federal government on an expedited path with Ibogaine clinical trials, put money into it as well, with the oversight team of the FDA in the Oval Office with the president and all those great patriots, right? Marcus Capone and the Luttrell brothers and all of those great patriots. It now brings it all together. And it will be so wonderful for all of our veterans in this country. But the message is the same. Texas leads, and the president even referenced it, Carlos, in his comments. He talked about how Republican leadership led the way with Ibogaine clinical trials in Texas that have now led the way for him to move forward with this executive order just 10 days ago in the Oval Office. So I feel so blessed that the Lord God utilized my energies, my time here on the earth in the Texas Senate to work with all my colleagues to drive this vision for the future of America and to protect our vets and to protect all of our citizens that suffer from mental health. Think about what the financial benefit will be. You can't put a price on a precious human life. And what the difference will make with Ibogaine treatments is my prayer. But also think about the difference it'll make for all of our veterans. And then you think about when we're able to apply this technology to help the public at large, it'll be a reduction in what the taxpayer has to pay for mental health and health and human services. And then I was able to negotiate as a business guy because my business training and business experiences have prepared me for a time such as this, gave me the ability and the insight to negotiate a royalty for the people of Texas. If we're successful on these Ibogaine trials, that then will permanently benefit Texas veterans so that we can be the best place in all of America for our veterans. We have more veterans in Texas than any other state. We want to continue to be the home where we take care of our veterans best, but having a piece of a successful commercialized Ibogaine product will make an enormous difference because it will be a permanent annuity for the people of Texas to take care of our veterans like no other place.
Wow. I have to say, you should write a book too, Senator. The Art of Deal. Come on now.
Hey.
Don't leave that just to the president because that's a deal right there. And we're nearing the finish line here, but I want to kind of touch. How were you able to navigate the opposition of other interests or lobbies? Because Big Pharma has a lot to lose in the end if whatever the status quo is in regards to the options that are now available to the public when it comes to those ailments. How does that work? Because usually we often hear otherwise that we have some great idea or some great product that has incredible potential, but it kind of dies out before it even gets started due to the financial or lobby interests that it goes against.
Sure. Look, what I would probably tell you is this. I think in passing that bill for the country, and now the executive order that we have now in place that just was signed at the federal level by the president and with Secretary Kennedy, who will implement it, I don't think that the fight is over. And this is an important message.
It ain't over.
It ain't over. It ain't over until it's over, my friend.
Right.
Meaning, I passed so many pieces of legislation over the years on so many important topics. I've been so fortunate to protect Texas on so many areas. But I pass a great bill, and most people think it's done. It takes years and years to get it done. These are epic battles to get it done and to accomplish it. But then you've got to make certain it's implemented with fidelity to your vision. You got to make certain it doesn't get messed up along the way. And that's what now has to happen. It has to happen at the state level with our clinical trial. It has to happen at the federal level, that we need to continue to remain vigilant and to remain passionate. And we were able to pass this bill because the lieutenant governor and Mrs. Patrick understood the impact it would have for all of our veterans be so powerful. And it overcame any opposition. And my colleagues in the Senate followed my lead. And then my colleagues in the House followed my lead. And Cody did a fine job in being my sponsor of that bill. And so all of that together, along with our great Governor Abbott, our great Lieutenant Governor, my colleagues in the House and Senate that understand the importance of this issue, that stepped up and fought, they all came alongside us to be a part of this fight. Yeah. And we really, frankly, overpowered the opposition. And then you would see testimony from Marcus Luttrell. Let me tell you, no one gives testimony about the power of Ibogaine and where your life was before and after than the Luttrell brothers, right? Wow. And Marcus talking about it and the impact. And of course, Morgan fighting for it now at the federal level in Washington. And so, I was so fortunate to have all that kind of come together. And that's why I kind of say that nothing happens with coincidence. This was God's plan. It was God's plan that Texas would lead for America's veterans, that we would establish the path that we would open the door, that we would push it through and get it going, and then give President Trump and Secretary Kennedy the opportunity to come behind it and go, look at what Texas is doing. We're going to now take it to the next level and make it the law of the land to expedite this process at the federal level. And so all of it was God's orchestration to bring all my friends, to be Governor Perry, being such a great advocate on the outside, Brian Hubbard, my friend Brian, our friends, the Luttrells, all of our great veterans I talked about here in this journey, to then get to the critical mass that was required to be able to overcome the opposition. And I think the most powerful story ever was one vet after another privately telling me their story about how it made all the difference in their life, that they're able to reclaim their life. They're able to be the husband and the father that they used to be, that they want to be. They were able to do things again in the business world where they weren't before. And so I just feel so blessed that I was there, that the Lord gave me that opportunity, put it on my heart, that I saw the opportunity, the chance to lead that kind of effort legislatively in Texas that would hopefully change permanently, is my prayer, the future of mental health in America and for the world.
Well, you said critical mass.
Yes.
And for me, it's the ripple effect. Imagine every household that has a veteran,
Yes.
or anyone for that matter, with that kind of issue,
Yes.
that can benefit.
Right.
That option available to them. How many other members of society at large? It's just like a ripple effect of unfathomable magnitude. Incredible.
100%.
Incredible.
Carlos, that's what I see. And that's my prayer. The Lord will bless the effort, and it will be so successful, so fertile, to help all of our vets and to help all of our people suffering with these issues in America and around the world.
I tell you this, some people say too great to fail. I say too good to fail.
Amen.
You know, it's too good.
Amen.
Jenna has been here in recent times. And, of course, the topic was very sensitive, and she gave an incredible testimonial of heroic proportions, because she became an advocate or whatever, suffering she has to go through. But I know you're pretty big into protecting our citizens, our youth in particular, about, the danger of sex trafficking and sexual abuse.
Yes.
And I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on that, because you are one, if not the one responsible for the Jenna Law, which became federal, and I need to hear a little bit of
Well, Carlos, thank you for talking about that topic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm a businessman. I focus on these big policy issues like we talked about, the trade environment, the economic environment, the regulatory environment, innovating technology to protect us from our adversaries, securing the border, all those things. I'm blessed to carry the Homeland Security bill for Texas, all those things. But at the end of the day, what drives me is, are we taking care of the social fabric? Are we taking care of our kids? Are we taking care of vulnerable populations? And so, my wife, Beth, and I, my wife's a saint, that put up with me for 31 years and 20 years now in the legislature volunteering, right? I mean, all these years as a volunteer, volunteering 80 hours a week for almost 20 years now.
Oh my gosh.
But because of all of that, you have to be moved by things that really touch you personally, touch your heart, touch your soul at a spiritual level.
Yeah.
And, my wife, Beth, and I, back in 2008, I was a brand new member of the House of Representatives from Denton County, Texas. And I got invited out, my wife and I, to go to a facility, something called the Children's Advocacy Center of Denton County. And my wife and I met this incredibly courageous, strong survivor of child sexual abuse by the name of Jenna Quinn. Jenna was a 17-year-old kid that was hurting, had gone through the most unspeakable pain. And she had gone to the CAC to provide hope and healing for her. And they were helping her, but she was still very early on in that journey of healing and hope. But she knew this, as a 17, 18-year-old kid, she knew that she wanted to make certain that other precious kids would never suffer the way that she had suffered so horrifically. And so in a multi-hour meeting at the CAC with my wife, Beth, she told us what experience she had gone through, all the details, all the horror, the nightmare that this poor kid had suffered through. And Beth and I walked away from that meeting, Carlos, and we said, the Lord's got us here for a reason. There's There's a reason why tonight, this afternoon, we spent these hours with Jenna understanding her story. And we knew we had to do something that would make a difference. It was a charge to keep, to protect that baby girl and all of America's baby girls, all of Texas's kids. And so we walked away, and I committed right then and there to Jenna that we would do something, that would make a difference. And so I went away from that meeting knowing that we would work on what that would look like from a policy perspective. I didn't know what the framework would look like. I had no idea at that point. I just started to study the issue, to get deep into understanding how we could make a difference that would try to help Texas kids. And so that's where Jenna's Law was born. And so in my very next opportunity, in January of 2009, I worked all year in 2008, late 2007, as a brand new freshman House member. And in January of 2009, I would file a bill that would become Jenna's Law. And it was the very first bill in Texas history. It was the very first bill in all of America to carry a bill to stop these predators and to protect our children from child sexual abuse. That's what the bill was all about. And so by God's grace, I filed it in the House of Representatives. I got it through the committee process. Jenna came to testify in the House and the Senate. Think about that for a minute, Carlos. Think about a 17, 18-year-old kid coming and telling the most horrific memories and experiences of her life, what she went through on a public stage. Think about her courageousness, how brave she was to do that. I'll never forget it. It was just incredible. She's a force of nature. And so literally, we got that bill out of the House. And when I passed it on the floor of the House of Representatives, I named it in honor of Jenna. Right there, live, on the fly, I named it in honor of Jenna and her recognition of her service to the country for raising awareness and forever to be an ambassador and to be a fighter to protect all of America's kids. And so that's where it began. So in 2009, we passed Jenna's Law. My good friend, of course, then Governor Perry, signed that bill into law. And it was the very first bill in all of America to stop and work to prevent child sexual abuse. And then when that happened, we got that bill done. Then I started looking around. I studied so much more about the environment around it. How did this happen? How was this occurring? We had this epidemic of child sexual abuse. Didn't matter whether it was a rich neighborhood, a poor neighborhood. Didn't matter the ethnicity. It touched every aspect of human life, every community. And then you realized what was going on in Texas, in our land of milk and honey, that I had a problem beyond that. We had this runaway problem with child sexual abuse. We had a problem with really teens, homeless teens that were living on the streets here in Texas. And I started realizing in that same era after passing Jenna's Law that we had hundreds of kids on the streets at night that were sleeping on the floors of C-stores. And these were kids, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and how wrong that was. And the reason being is that the laws on the books in Texas at the time said that a homeless teen shelter had to shut down at midnight. Doesn't matter whether or not it was run by a community or by a church, it had to shut down at midnight. The height of the problem, it would open up at 7 or 8 in the morning. Well, what good is that? You're feeding them, giving them a bath or a shower during the day, but you're not protecting them from all those horrible things that could happen in the evening from 12 to 6 a.m., right? 7 a.m. And so as a result of that, I changed that law that we would never allow a homeless teen shelter to close at midnight, that they'd be able to operate all night long. And then I understand even bigger now this problem with human trafficking. And so I started recognizing and being a student of what was occurring and how do we stop it? How do we prevent it? And it's all, Carlos, interconnected. Child sexual abuse, homeless teens, human trafficking, it's all interconnected. And how these predators prey on all of that. And so then I realized, and I was so fortunate to start carrying bills to stop human trafficking. And I was the very first Republican in Texas to carry bills to stop human trafficking. And I do it every cycle of the legislature ever since that same time period. I just had arguably the most successful bill we've ever passed to stop human trafficking. Governor Abbott signed in the spring of 2024, the affirmative defense against prosecution that I think will make all the difference in this fight to protect these precious children. Kids as young as 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And of course, teenagers and kids in their 20s and 30s that, they're really told by their by their trafficker. If you don't do these things, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your parents. I'm going to kill your loved ones. I mean, and so under horrific coercion.
Yeah.
And so now we have a bill in Texas to address that with the affirmative defense. But it all goes back, Carlos, to meeting, for me, this incredible, courageous survivor of Jenna Quinn. The fact that we passed that bill in 2009. We then started working together to go to every state in America to start spreading the word. And together we worked I took her to ALEC and NCSL and all these platforms to meet other lawmakers across America. And we got to 34 states over the next 16 years. Think about that.
Incredible.
So Jenna and I, our families working together. Jenna is so close to my wife, Beth, and to my daughters and our families. I have such a wonderful relationship with her parents and her sisters. And it's just an incredible, incredible bond that we have that is, the Lord brought it all together for a reason, to protect his children in Texas and across America. And so here we are getting to 34 states, 34. And then to have Senator John Cornyn carry that bill at the federal level, to pass it in the U.S. Senate, get it to the U.S. House. And it took a couple of times. Nancy Pelosi, it's hard to comprehend, but when she was Speaker of the House, she wouldn't let that bill move. She wouldn't let that bill move. You think about that, a bill to protect all of America's kids. And I don't want to get into partisan politics around Jenna's law, but that's the reality, okay? It only happened in a Speaker Johnson House that we're able to get that done. And then, my birth name is Nathaniel. I'm Nathaniel the Fourth. So when I was born, my mom, my grandmother, my aunt said we can't have a third NAT running around. Nat, let's reverse NAT and make it TAN. And so then what's amazing about this, where I reference my name as, God, my formal name on my birth certificate is Nathaniel. It took another Nathaniel in the U.S. House to carry that bill, Nathaniel Moran from East Texas, a great young congressman, to then carry the bill for me at the federal level to complete the journey. So to have Cornyn and Moran carry Jenna's law, the Jenna Quinn law for America that now was signed into law, it is quite extraordinary at the end, basically December, right before Christmas in 2024, to protect all of America's kids. And that's why I want people to understand that they can make a difference. One man, one woman can make a difference. Being involved in the civic process, being civically minded can make all the difference, because here it is, this courageous, brave kid that my wife Beth and I met all those years ago in 2008, a 16-year journey to get to 34 states, and then to pass it at the federal law to make it the law of America. And then in the process of not just passing Jenna's law, but for me over the last 17, 18 years, to then create all these bills that stop human trafficking and that protect our youth and the most vulnerable in our society. How grateful I am to have had those opportunities, all sparked by this incredible Jenna Quinn. And the fact that Jenna, Carlos, that you spent time with her, what a force of nature she is.
Oh, yeah.
And that it all happens, that we continue this effort around the country to raise awareness and to protect our kids. It's a permanent charge to keep for me and my wife and the Parker family, just as it is for Jenna and the Quinn family. And I'm just so grateful that God brought us all together. It's just really one of those beautiful experiences in my life that the Lord has put me in the theater, in the environment at the right time to make a difference on enormously critical public policy for the good of the state and the good of the nation.
Amen. It's one very unfortunate event that triggers a series of fortunate events.
Yes.
That's legacy.
You're right.
There. Legacy.
Well, you're right. I mean, that you see the suffering, the tragedy, the brokenness, and you see how God can redeem that. And that coalition, that orchestra of all the players involved to make it happen.
Amazing. This episode is sponsored by Stay Humble Coffee. Coffee is so good, it doesn't need to brag. Find it at stayhumblecoffee.com. That leads us to one topic here that I think I want to end with this. And both of us share the acquaintance, the knowledge of somebody that was very dear to so many. It has been in particular to my family. I always say he was the greatest benefactor and advocate of the entire Machado family. which I'm the eldest. And my claim in regards to Carlos, more known as Chuck Norris, is I was blessed to know a side of that man that not many have the opportunity
Amen.
to do it,
Yes.
And when
Yes.
you portray a character on the screen, you have a hero on the screen. But I think his greatest role was being a hero in real life, but the person that he was.
Absolutely.
So I know that we have some eventful things that will take place this week that you took the initiative personally to cause to happen. Why don't we share a little bit of the reminiscing of the great, rest in peace, Carlos, more known as Chuck Norris?
Well, Carlos, thank you for bringing that topic up. I mean, it's so near and dear to both of us. We both love the Norris family.
Yes.
We both loved Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
He was so incredible to me and my family, just like he was so incredible to you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
How fortunate, how blessed we were to have known such a man. Look, the world knows him for all the incredible martial artist mastery and all the things that he did on the screen, the big screen, amazing actor, and what he did with Walker, Texas Ranger, and all the films and all the mastery, obviously, of the martial arts. But we know him as Carlos, as the man, and what he did for kids, what he did for people. His entire life, Carlos, I want people to know this about him, was about service. It wasn't about how I pad my nest and have greater wealth and more of this and more of that. No, it was about giving back at every turn, serving the American people, serving the people of the world. You think about the number of times he went out on military bases and did things for our troops all around the world and thanked them for their service constantly. He was always called to do those things. Then you think about the fact that, he created this incredible, enduring legacy on so many levels. But I think about Kickstart, and I think about what he did to be able to take kids that were vulnerable kids off the streets, away from drugs, away from crime, and to give them discipline that only the martial arts can provide, to give them the opportunity to a promising and productive and wonderful life. And that fact that he did that at scale for all those decades, for so many thousands and thousands of kids that are products now of Kickstart, right? And all that he did. And you just think about the man and how that's what drove him. It wasn't about fame and fortune. It was about his family. It was about service to his country, service to the next generation. And I know firsthand how much he loved his family, how much he loved his kids, how much he loved his brother Aaron, how much he loved his brother Whelan. The stories I'd hear about their love for their brother Whelan that, of course, passed and during the Vietnam War era, how much they loved their mom, how close they were, how much Carlos loved his wife, Gina, and all of his children, that he was happiest when he was around his family and his close friends, to see him at the ranch in Navasota with Aaron and the family. And I just think about how fortunate I was to be on the back of a golf cart with Carlos and Aaron Norris, having fun, kicking, just having a fun day and enjoying one another's time and fellowship, and nothing more than two brothers and a family, and to be able there and have a meal and enjoy one another and reminisce and talk about, what we could do next to be able to make a difference for real people in the world. That's what he was focused on always. He was so generous. He would be the last person to leave an event because he would sign every autograph. He would always give back and try to make a difference. And he so generously gave of himself. And helping everyone that came across his path in life. And that's the real legacy of this man. Yeah. And I don't think enough people also know that he served in the Air Force himself, that he was, served in incredible ways and was honorably discharged ever before he went down to this path of this incredible life, further life, and martial arts, and all that he did in television and film, and becoming, one of the most famous men on the face of the earth. And so I just am eternally grateful to him for loving my family, for coming out with me campaigning with me. I remember bringing him to an event with a bunch of Republicans and leading the body of probably a room of 500, 800 people and celebrating him and singing happy birthday on his 80th. I think about times with him and the family at the ranch. I think about campaigning with him. He would come out on the campaign trail and do events with me when I was running for the Senate. I mean, all those incredible memories. And he was always just so selfless in every way. And I just want young people to understand the role model that he was. Yeah. Again, beyond all the Hollywood, beyond all the fame and fortune, he was about God. He was about family. He was about country, and he was about service to others. And that's what Carlos Norris was all about. And in every way. And there's so many stories, Carlos, I could tell you, but back, I think it was 2009, I was very fortunate enough to have the opportunity to make Carlos Norris, as we all know, AKA Chuck Norris, and his brother Aaron, honorary Texas Rangers.
I was there.
Were you there that day?
I was. With Governor Rick Perry. Yeah.
Governor Perry and I were there that day, but as a new member of the House of Representatives, I drove this whole concept and idea through the Public Safety Commission.
Lo and behold, you were behind every action right there. Oh my goodness!
I drove that through the Public Safety Commission.
Yeah.
To understand the importance that these two fellas, no one had done more for the Texas Rangers to protect their brand, to strengthen their brand, to be able to be a recruitment tool for future generations of Texas Rangers, this incredibly historic group, and to be able to take that legislative idea through the Public Safety Commission, to have the support of the commissioners, and then to bring it forward. And then, as you remember, we were there in East Dallas. We were in Garland at the Department of Public Safety office. And Colonel McGraw, who ran DPS and the Rangers at that time, when we talked about the event of the day, he was going to have 30 of our great Texas Rangers there as the backdrop in the room. And then to have Governor Perry come into the room and to award this honorary Ranger designation alongside these great Rangers, that I was blessed to do that alongside Governor Perry and to drive the initiative and to be there to make it happen. I mean, here I was, a sophomore member or whatever of the House, to introduce Governor Perry and to introduce Carlos and Aaron. I mean, how blessed have I been in life?
So they haven't met until then? They hadn't.
No, they had met, but to introduce them in this event.
I got you.
Right? To introduce the governor, to introduce them to the crowd that was there. And you saw what we had. There was not a media, there was not a missing television camera in that facility anywhere in the state of Texas. Every camera in Texas was there that day, every one of them. Mm-hmm. And it was the #1 trending story in the world. It actually took down the Yahoo website because it was so popular for several days that Chuck Norris and Carlos Norris and Aaron Norris became honorary Texas Rangers. And I just looked back and I go, wow, thank you, Lord, for giving me that idea and that concept and being able to execute on it and to be there with them, to be with you. I didn't even know you were there, Carlos. Yeah. That's before we'd ever met.
Yeah, I know. It was meant to be.
Incredible. Yeah. Incredible. So I'm just filled with gratitude that all the things that the Lord's done in my life, that to put me in the environment, to have those kinds of ideas. And I think the enduring thing of that, it was a great fun day, incredible day in every way, and so special for both of them. I mean, literally, Carlos would be tearing up, as would Aaron, about being an honorary Texas Ranger. But the most powerful thing of that was what will happen for generations to come. Mm-hmm. All the young men and women that will now consider being in this most elite law enforcement group called the Texas Rangers, because a guy from Oklahoma, a guy named Carlos Norris, took the time and energy to care about those Rangers when he had that wonderful show in Walker, and was such a role model that it will inspire the next generation, one, to serve in law enforcement, as well as hopefully America's military, but to be in law enforcement and to aspire to becoming a Texas Ranger. I think that will be one of these incredible things about his legacy that will live on for centuries to come here in the great state of Texas.
I completely agree, Mr. Parker. It has been an immense pleasure to share this time with you. And I want to conclude with this. And I'm on a more personal level. I have 3 Carloses in my life, the greatest man in my life. Carlos Gracie Sr., who was the patriarch of the Gracie family and a mentor to me, and my uncle. My dad, Carlos Machado, who I have been named after, and the great, rest in peace, Carlos Norris, one of the greatest friends and human beings anyone could ever meet.
Amen.
So I want to finish
Amen.
with that.
Amen, brother.
Thank you.
That's exactly right. He was just so absolutely incredible. And just one thing, I know it will air here after what will happen later in the week, but we're excited that Texas will be his final resting place, and that we'll do a Texas-sized tribute with our Rangers and with our great military to honor a wonderful life. And I'm just so grateful to the Lieutenant Governor for supporting that vision and working with him to make this happen here in Texas for his legacy and for the family and for all those that know and love this incredible man that we know as Chuck Norris. God rest his soul.
Thank you. Amen. Look forward to seeing you there,
Hey,
sir.
absolutely.
Thank you.
God bless
Thank
you, and thanks for all you
Thank
do,
you.
Carlos.
Thank you.
Thank
Same
you.
here.
Thank you for the time and allow me to reflect on this dear friend that we both love so much. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure and honor.
Thank
you,
you.
sir.